All right, Sam. So, welcome to the Feminine Frequency.
Thanks, Queen.
I
I'm
would say
stoked to be
welcome
here.
back. You've probably been on the show like multiple times. I can't even remember.
I think I have. But every time it gets better and better.
It does. And like now we're getting to record in studio, and something that both you and I are really excited about this year is IRL, like getting together in real life, getting to hug each other, look into each other's eyes. It's really special.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing that compares to in-person energy.
Yeah.
It's just, Zoom is great, and I'm so grateful for it. But like this, I'm like, I just want to like touch you and shake you and dance and twerk. And there's nothing that compares.
Yeah. And you actually just came from a really cool in-person experience in the Bahamas. And
Yeah.
you've been really focused on putting yourself in rooms with other incredible, inspiring leaders and visionaries. And so what was that like to be in Bahamas with other amazing women?
Yeah, Bahamas it was epic. I mean, we actually spent the majority of the time masterminding, which is really fun because I love that like creative, like riffing and sitting in a circle and being like, ooh, we could do that. We could do that. What about this? What about this? And putting all of our geniuses together. But yeah, for me, like I think where I shine and where I can really fully receive is in person. And so I've been making that shift to making all my investments in person, podcast, same as you, taking my show in person, and then hosting my own experiences in person, masterminds and working with clients in person, because it's the fastest way to collapse time. Like I feel like there's shifts happen on a cellular level, whereas on, Zoom or remotely, it's good enough, but nothing will compare to the in person. So
Totally.
It was a blast. And we had can I swear?
You can.
We had a fucking portal. Yeah. I met an alien. I know this is going really woo, really
Let's
fast.
go real fast.
We had an alien encounter, I swear. It was like so meta. I did Kundalini. It was all the things that are my favorite all in one weekend with epic women. So it doesn't get much better than that.
Yes, so good. Yeah, and I'm also grateful for the online space. I mean, I've been online since before the pandemic, and I think everything switched to online. There was no more like in-person component, and I'm excited for this year for retreats and to get to I'm having my retreat in Costa Rica.
Yeah, it's soon, right?
Yeah, coming up in a few weeks. And I get to connect with clients that I've been building relationships with for a few years. And now I get to hug them in person. One of the funniest things that I remember is when I hosted my first in-person retreat with my clients, and I usually see them on that Zoom square, and it's basically just all of us sitting down.
Yeah.
Well, I met some of my clients and they didn't know how tall I was.
Yes.
And they were all tall, not all of them, but most of them were taller than me. I'm 5'3". You're also a shorty.
I'm 5'1". People are like, yo, you're like a midget. I'm like, we got big energy.
You're
though.
like, I got big energy. I got a big voice. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt that just in person, when you're doing your own practices by yourself at home, whether it's a meditation or an embodiment practice, when you're in space with other women, and one of the things that I find so powerful about sisterhood is when you are able to be witnessed by another woman. And I think so much of our work is about authenticity. That's something that we share in our own journeys and then also in our work with our clients. And to be in a space where you feel fully seen, where you feel accepted, where you feel loved, and you don't have to perform. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to hide these different parts of you.
Yeah.
And I think that is such deep medicine for our souls as women, especially. I don't know about you, but I grew up in high school where I was I just don't feel like I fit in. I always had a few friends, but I was never part of a group.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Same.
And there's so much wounding that can happen with that, and comparison and competition. And we've both had a journey with body image that is huge. When you're talking about being visible, it's you got to feel good in your body in order to really put yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same. I mean, we were reflecting. I actually, in this Kundalini practice I did in the Bahamas, my friend Nikki led it, and I went really deep. And this was deeper than any breathwork ceremony, anything. I was able to be so present in my body, and I had this uncontrollable sadness that came out of me. Like I cried for like an hour, like sobbing on the floor with all these other women around me. But it was like one of the first times that I felt safe to really let go and be witnessed in that. And everyone was telling me and reflecting back to me, they were like, I could feel like your inner child. Like she was really sad. She had so much abandonment. And that's one of my biggest like wounds, is abandonment and not being seen. And I don't think I would have been able to get there had I didn't feel safe enough to get there, right? And so I think, to your point, it's like when you are in rooms with other women who get it and are actively working on being the fullest expression of themselves and building something, because I think those two things kind of go hand in hand. When you do connect deeply to yourself, you end up connecting to your dharma or your purpose or what lights you up and following that path. I don't think you can ignore that. When you're in rooms with those types of women, it is inevitable that there will be healing, you know, and that you will come closer back to yourself. And there was multiple times where we just like reflected back to each other how powerful we were, or like, oh my God, you're so good at this, or oh my God, the way that you do this is so beautiful. And for us to celebrate each other, there's no like judgment, gossip, any of that bullshit from like high school and all of those times where I thought that was the only way, you know. And now that we have like our friendship, you know, like we met in a mastermind like however many years ago, and it's like our friendship's always been rooted on like love and support and empowerment and like being weirdos, but also being like epic humans, and then also being these mushy, soft, vulnerable hot messes. Like we can be all of it, and it's perfect.
Yeah. And what I love is like our expressions are so different.
Yes.
And I want to talk about that today, because I feel like some people are like, oh, being your authentic self needs to look like this, or being confident needs to look like this.
Yeah.
I guess I'll describe you, and then maybe
Ooh,
you
this
describe
is fun.
This is fun. Yeah, this one's coming through. Okay. So when I think of you, I think of like bold, big energy. And I think of like someone who's not afraid to take up space. And that's not just with like being the best cheerleader for other women, but I also think of you as like someone who's willing to like be raw and like be in her emotions and like not hold back. Like I just feel like unapologetic, which is so, I think that's the name of what your mastermind or programmer was at some point. Yeah.
Yes.
So like I really see that in you, and my expression has a lot of similar flavors or undertones, but how would you describe my expression?
Yeah, I feel like you bring forward more sensual vibes. It's a much softer, deeper intensity, and there's like the Scorpio vibes. I get those like so strong from you, of like this mystery, where you can take a stand for something, but you're not going to be the loudest in the room because you don't need to be, right? But there's this power in like your presence, and I feel that from you, of like it's slower, it's softer. Whereas I'm like, let's run an ultra marathon, let's fuck it up, let's go on stage, let's twerk, and you know,
let me travel to all these places. Like when you told me that you were flying in from the Bahamas at 10 p.m. last night, I was like, girl, I need like at least a day after I travel to like get my shit together. And like,
dude, but this has been my life. Like I've been doing van life. I did van life for 3 years. We were in Nashville, or in Franklin, like a little bit south of Nashville, stayed at my friend's place. Then I went with my family, stayed with them for a week, then back with my friend, then flew to Bahamas with her. Then now I'm here for 2 weeks, and then flying to Boulder.
Yeah.
And that's just my life. It's crazy. But that's what makes me feel alive. For you, that would probably be so draining, and you'd be like, I need to take a vacation from my life.
Yeah. I watch you and I'm like, I'm fucking exhausted over here. But like, I love that, following your aliveness. And I've had different seasons in my life. Like I've been nomadic, you know, as well. And traveled and all of that. And also like, for me, I love having like a home base where I feel rooted and grounded. And then I love being able to travel, and my soul does come alive when I travel, you know, even on the way here, just getting on the plane. Like just there's an energy shift of getting out of your own home environment, and there can be a stagnation when we're in the same routine. Like there's so much value in routine, and then there's also stagnation. How do you stay like grounded when you're traveling? Does that happen, or it doesn't?
No, it does. So here's the thing. When we first started van life 3 years ago, I was a disaster. Like truly, I told Kurt, I don't want to do this anymore. Like the idea of it was way better than the actual version of it. I was so stressed out. Like I didn't have my practices. And it was cold. Like at the time it wasn't super hot, so it's not like I could do them outside. And I felt constantly trapped. And I think part of that was also because I was trapped, I was also feeling all of the emotions I had suppressed. So not only could I not like do my practices and feel good and whatever, but I had to sit with myself, and that was really painful. So like the first year of van life was very healing for me, in that I had to face a lot of my stuff, you know? But as we moved forward, I realized, well, I need to find a way to ground myself, because I can't rely on external circumstances to feel grounded. And I will say I am in the season right now of being like, we're buying our house in Boulder and we're just finding the perfect home. And I cannot fucking wait to sit on that couch and not move for like a full day. You know, like I'm like, oh, that feels so luxurious to just not move.
We've been in couch life. Like we just bought our house and we bought this epic couch. I didn't know how important having a big couch is to me. And I just like melt into this couch. Corey was like, I feel like we have like multiple experiences on a daily basis on this couch. Like different places you can sit, different places you can cuddle. Like it's hilarious. So I'm really excited for you to melt into your couch in your new house.
Yeah, I do. How do I say this? Van life was incredible. I feel like it shaped me and it made me resilient as fuck. There's like nothing I can't do now. I'm like, my nervous system is so resilient. Like I can handle anything, and I almost rarely get triggered in the sense that like, oh my God, things aren't going to plan, because that's what our life was. It's like, oh, we can't sleep here tonight. Oh, last minute changes. But because I never had those solid foundations, I'm really, honestly, I'm proud of what I've built, not having solid foundations, but I'm so excited to see what happens when we have a house. I feel like it's going to bring a whole new depth and power to the work that I do, and I will be able to actually have routine, which is important. You know, we need structure and systems in our lives to actually thrive. So it will be really fun and healing, I think, to have home. And Boulder and Colorado generally, I think, is the first place I've ever felt like, wow, this is home. I've never had that feeling in my whole life.
Yeah.
And like in an external like environment, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. I had full body goosebumps driving through the roads. I'm like, oh my God, I need to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you're following that. I've been thinking a lot lately about this concept of your soul home, because for me right now, Asheville is my soul home, and my hope is that it is forever, but who knows, things change. But like, there's just something about being there that feels like ease, that feels grounding, that feels like truth. Like I just know I'm meant to be there. And before I moved to Asheville, I had lived in San Diego for most of my adult life. And then I traveled for a bit, and I was like, you know, I'm just not feeling called to go back to San Diego. It was like my family lives there. I used to love it. And I'm like, it just kind of felt like the safe option, or like the comfortable option, or the familiar option. And then getting to Asheville, even in just like a couple of weeks of being there, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to live. And it was like the craziest feeling. I'm like, I'm going to move across the freaking country to this place where I originally knew one person before I moved here who doesn't even live there anymore. Like just so crazy. And then all of the amazing things that unfolded. Like I wrote my book, and I met my partner, and I have this incredible like
I have goosebumps.
community of women. And then I've got like this soul family of like couples and families, and like just people who are on a similar frequency, who have similar values, and who are really just like here for that community vibe. And I'm excited for you to create that.
Dude, I feel the same. Because for me, it's like, I want to be outside. I want to be able to do all my sports and like run and hike and do cool shit. And so many people in Colorado are doing that. Like in the month that we stayed there prior to heading to Nashville, I met so many incredible humans. It was like divine synchronicities everywhere. It's like you couldn't have planned this, you know? And actually just last night, this is wild. I was on the plane and I was bored, and I didn't really have, I was like, I can't sleep. I'm too wired, but I need to do something. And so I was just scrolling. There's like a Facebook group for like Boulder creative housing or something like that. And the photos weren't loading on the internet Wi-Fi for some reason. But this like dude wrote this post, and I was like, holy shit, this is the next place that we live. Like, because we're gonna do a rental until we buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't see the photos. I just said, are pets allowed? Because I have Heffy, and I'm like, he's a German Shepherd Husky. And I'm like, some people are like, they don't want big dogs. I'm like, he's super well trained. And he responded to me and he was like, yeah, let's talk in the DMs. So he DMs me, and in that 2-minute span that he DM'd me, my friend commented on his post and said, oh my God, I've been to his house. It's incredible. I was like, wait, what? Then he DMs me. We find out all of these wild connections, interests.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like too wild. Then the photos loaded this morning once I reopened it, and I was like, the house is fucking gorgeous. It's exactly what I want. It's 10 minutes to Boulder. Like, what the fuck? It has $1 million view. It has a saltwater hot tub. Like, give me a fucking break. Like, could it be any better than this? Like, it's like that stuff wasn't happening for me anywhere else. And I, like you, community is like everything. Like, I'm like, I get so filled up with life when I have humans around me to do stuff with. And I miss that. That was the one of the biggest downsides to van life. Though it feels like you should have community, you don't, because you're like moving. You're like, okay, cool, I'm in Texas for 2 weeks, but then I'm going to leave. And so the friendships you make, then you have to maintain online.
Deepen those. It requires that quality time, having experiences together. And yeah, community is very much part of the age of Aquarius. It's the astrological age that we're in. It's part of, this feminine rising. It's like this collaboration and doing things together. I imagine like people sitting around a fire or women sitting in circle together. It's like that is coming back online energetically and in the collective. And I think part of being your authentic self, like it depends on your family that you grew up in, but most people's family of origins, like it is harder to be your authentic self when you stay in the same environment that you've been in your whole life. Because even if you look at Joe Dispenza's work, where you look at, our environment imprints on our psyche, and just even like seeing the same things and being around the same people keeps us stuck in the same identity very often.
For sure.
And it's taken me a long time to be authentic in all areas of my life. And there's definitely aspects of ways of being when I'm with my family that are different than when I'm with my soul family, right?
Sure, yeah.
Or when I'm with my partner and I have more to talk about and I feel more free to just be myself. And then there's like these weird things that happen with our family. But I feel like there is something, whether it is just like traveling and seeing new places and being around people who don't know you as your younger self, right? Or moving somewhere new, if that's what you feel called to. But I really want to share that invitation that is so expansive.
Yeah.
And I know it can feel scary to do that.
Totally.
This wasn't easy to move across the country. It's not easy to be your authentic self. It takes a lot of courage and working through all the fears that come up.
Yeah, for sure. The first time I ever traveled alone was in college. And I flew to California. I had a one-way ticket. I am totally the person that will just say fuck it and wing it and figure it out as I go. Like I'm the one that's building the rocket ship as it's taking off.
Yeah.
And I flew out there. I didn't have a plan where I was going to sleep. I had a job, but I didn't know I was going to sleep. And that was the first time where I realized like location matters. I lit up there. I was living right in like Santa Monica area. And I was running and I was outside and I was on the beach and then I was hiking and I'm like, I need the outdoors. I can't live in a super cold climate. And at the time I was living in Boston and I couldn't do it. And then when Kurt and I met, we were both living in Boston at the time. And he was also like, I want to get out of here. And so we didn't know where we wanted to live. And I think that's one of the cool things that has brought us together is both of us were like, we don't feel home here, but we don't know where home is. We want to do it together, but like, what's the place that's going to let us like really flourish? And so his idea was, well, let's buy a van and travel the US and let's figure out what feels like home. And that's what we did. And we visited like almost 40 states and found these pockets of home and like places I never imagined. Jackson in Wyoming. What? That is it seemed like the randomest place, but what I recognize is like the people there's a certain frequency of these places. Boulder is also another very high frequency place and you can feel it. you know, when you show up there, you're like, whoa, the people here kind of get it in a way that when you are on your authentic path and you really peel back the bullshit and the layers of like what makes you feel good, who the people are that are around you, you realize, oh, these are my humans. These are my people. You know, and I feel like for you being in Asheville, like when I came to visit you and all the times I've been there, I can see that for you. It's like, oh yeah. It's also very like lush there for it being like in the US.
It's literally like I don't know like the official stats on it, but it's like I think it's like the biggest like tropical rainforest
I feel
in the
rainforest
US.
tropical
Yeah.
vibes. And it's like you're either gonna live in Bali or Asheville. Like
Yeah.
that's your vibe, right? And it like works and it's very cool. And for me, I'm like, I need dry, but I didn't want to live in the literal desert. I was like, okay, but Colorado's a desert. So it's really cool because I can live at 10,000 feet elevation with a view in the desert where it's dry and I thrive. Like my body feels better. My skin looks amazing. Everything just is better. And I think it's just like taking note of like where you do feel that like aliveness. I feel like that's the word I don't want to say chasing, but always seeking is like, does this make me alive?
Which is the feminine. Like someone asked me, and this came through on a podcast one day when she was like, okay, how would you describe like feminine energy? And I was like, well, the basics of it is aliveness.
Yeah.
Like it's life force energy
Yes.
moving through
I
your
have
body.
goosebumps. That's my new mastermind name, by the way, Life Force, because of this.
Yeah.
I didn't even put those two together until you just said that. I'm like, oh, it is actually so much of the feminine energy that's like pulsating through your fucking body. And you're like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you have the best sex of your life, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
like that's
the
it.
Shakti. That's
Yes.
the life force.
Yes.
And it's like when we are disconnected from that, we just become shells of humans. We are human doings, not human beings. And that life force, it takes intention to cultivate and to prioritize that. And so one of the things that you're sharing, you're like, okay, the people that you surround yourself by, your environment, like, does it enliven you or does it deplete you or does it not? It just doesn't do anything for you, right? And so you're like following that aliveness. And when we do that, so much magic opens up. It doesn't mean that it's easy all the time. Like there's challenges along the way, but it's like, you know, when something feels right and when it doesn't feel right, which is also about listening to your freaking body. Like you just said, okay, I have chills. Like that's an example of listening to your body and tuning in to the sensations in your body, right? The pleasure from having an orgasm or having sex, that's listening to your body. And that's really what I envision for women is to be able to really connect with that, not from the mind, oh, I should live here, I should stay in this relationship, I should work this job, I should grow my business this way. It's like, that's all the mind.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. I've been recognizing this actively in two areas of my life, in relationship and in where we're going to move. So Kurt and I just got married and we've been together for almost 6 years. For the first few years of our relationship, my mind was so adamant that he was not the one.
Yes.
I can find better, blah, 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 blah. All these stupid stories. I need to find like a person who's like super driven like me and wants to be a CEO and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, thank fucking God that that's not the case because our relationship would be tapped if we had that much like drive. But my body loved him. Like felt so safe, would always gravitate toward. And I'm like, okay, interesting to witness that the thing that you think you should do is not, that's ego. That's mind. But where your heart is obviously like that's soul, right? It's the same with Boulder. I didn't know this, but Boulder is like one of the top 10 most expensive places to live. So is Jackson, which is funny. I'm like, all these places I want to live, why are they so expensive? My mind is like, Sam, why are you going to move to one of the most expensive places? That doesn't make any sense. Everything's going to be more expensive. Your mortgage is going to be more expensive. $1 million in Boulder gets you sometimes a shack.
Yes.
Like genuinely. It's actually ridiculous. But my body is like, there is a soul knowing that I don't need to worry about that because once I'm there, everything will catch up. I have this like, do I know how? No, I don't need to know how, but it's this knowing of like, you have to take the leap first and then everything else will catch up. And that's how I think you and I both lived our lives, have lived our lives and continue to live our lives, is very much like letting the body lead And I don't think enough people follow that, and they
Yep.
wonder why they're depressed. I was so depressed. So were you. We were both like, were you on medication? I can't
For a long
remember.
time.
Yeah, you were medicated. I was medicated through food. So similar feelings, right? Of I'm not happy. So what can I do to make myself happy? Medication, food, TV, just binge something, right? And it's like now, fortunately, I have such an incredible relationship with food and body and don't do that, but it's because I'm happy. It's like I have moments where I'm not, but I recognize that because I'm like, our natural state is well-being. Like our natural state is abundance. It's like when we're kids, we're good. We cry, we scream, we freak out, but like our natural state is joy and fun. That is our natural state as humans. But people are so fucking disconnected from that because they're not in the right relationship. They're not in the right place. They're not in the right work. They tell themselves they should be happy. Oh, I should be grateful. I should whatever.
Oh my God. You're just like literally taking me back to my experience of when I was living out of alignment with myself. And it's like this, it's almost like you're trying to fit, what's the saying, like a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
It's like, I should be happy. I should be grateful. And it's like, yeah, but I don't feel that way. You can't force yourself to feel that way. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we're not taught how to trust our body. We're taught the opposite. Like that's what this is my belief is like the food systems, everything right now in society is set up to disconnect people from their body and from their power. That's their power. When I started training for my first ultra marathon last year, I was like, holy fuck. If everyone had the same level of access that I do to my body right now in this training, it's hard, but you don't have a mind when you're exercising intensely or you're dancing and you're not in your mind, you feel so limitless because you are. But then you forget it and you go back into your conscious mind, which is full of lack and limitation. We are just constantly programmed to live there. We're not taught how to get out of our heads. And I'm like, guys, I'm not even running because I like to run. I actually don't like running. I like
says this new ultra marathon.
I know. I don't like it. I don't, but it's the only thing that really, truly, deeply connects me back to my body in such a visceral way where all the like bullshit falls apart. You know, it's like everything that's not true falls away and you're in truth, which is in your body. It's like, and I want to bring more awareness to this because I think feminine energy is taught like very soft and slow. And there's a time for that. But also sometimes people need more intensity to get out of their head and or longer duration to get out of their head. And it's like having these practices. Like I know you're always sharing your embodiment practices on your stories and stuff. And I'm like, yes, like this is what we need to be doing. Like this is how we know what's next for us.
Yeah.
It's like,
and similarly, like I've been really coming back to strength training again.
Yes.
I'm so grateful.
Because Corey, right? Like,
partner.
yes.
Yeah. He has a gym in Asheville, and not only is it like, helping me to get back into strength training, but the way that he prescribes exercise is around intuitively listening to both your bodily sensations. Do I feel pain? Do I feel tightness? Do I feel good? Do I feel ease in my body? And then also emotionally, do I feel anxious? Do I feel stressed? And then based on that, like the first check-in is checking in with your body, which he teaches you how to do. And then it's like, okay, what intensity of exercise, what category of exercise is my body guiding me to right now? And then you move through that and you might start exercising and you might feel tired and you might feel stiff. And then you get your body moving in the way that it's meant to move in that moment. And then you check in again after you do that and you're like, okay, what does my body need right now? And if we can do that, in exercise, we then can apply that in all other areas of our life. And so I was very afraid for a long time because I overdid it with exercise.
Me too.
Because I was burnt out. I was like, I don't think strength training is right for my body. I have a lower back thing. I get sick really easily when I push myself too hard, like all of these things. And it was because I hadn't learned how to do it in a way where I was actually honoring and listening to my body.
That's the skill of discernment. And I feel like that comes with time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you and I had the same thing, like disordered everything,
Mm-hmm.
a time of healing. I think this is a collective thing too. I'm starting to sense, and then it's a returning to like balance, home, whatever. And I had the same thing. I was like, I cannot put a barbell on my back because I did competitive powerlifting,
Mm-hmm.
and that really fucked me. Like I got super injured. I got so disordered with exercise. I was tracking calories. I was eating like a rabbit, honestly. And I was like, the leaner I get, the better. And it was so unhealthy. I didn't have space for anything else in my life. Like my life was like, what am I eating next? What am I eating now? And when's my next workout?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was like, I mean, I grew up as an athlete. I do like moving my body, but it became like this direct link of in my brain, if I don't work out, then I'm going to gain weight. And so recently, I mean, since the hurricane happened, I actually haven't worked out. This is shocking to me, but I haven't worked out, like done an official workout for over 3 months now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been seeing like how much improvement there's been in my mindset. Like I feel really loving towards my body, and it's not that I want to like never work out again. I really feel excited to get back into working out,
Yeah.
but like the gym got super destroyed, and like I've been focusing on other projects, and like this is just the season that I'm in. And to
Yeah.
be able to be in a place with my body and with myself where I'm not like beating myself up and being like, you're lazy, you're like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with you? And I'm also not in a place where I'm like picking myself apart in the mirror because I haven't worked out for 3 months. And ultimately, like my body actually looks and feels really good.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't
You look
worked
so
out.
hot. I was gonna tell you that, and then we just like got into the convo, but I was like, girl, yes, let's go.
And I look forward to getting back
Yeah.
into exercise. I feel really good when I'm exercising. But like I think for me, this has just been such an example of how far I've come with my body. And I know you've been on a big journey. Like, I'm curious, how do you feel in your body, about your body, like in this current state and like chapter of your life?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I signed up for the ultra marathon the training started July 1st. And prior to that, I hadn't really been doing anything, just for funsies, like going for a walk or a hike.
You were hiking.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of hiking. So I think at that point, I was like, okay, I am significantly I feel so much better when I am exercising consistently. It's like my medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And my life feels really incomplete without it. Like, I feel like it's part of like my DNA. I actually did a past life reading where I was like some medicine woman, and one of the things that I did was I would fast and I would see how long and how far I could run. It was so, like, I have goosebumps as I say it. I'm like, so fascinating. I have this visual of me like running through the woods, and it's like, how far could I run? And I don't know the answer to that, but it's almost like my body needs that in order to just exist, not like perform optimally. Yes, that's great, but it's more just like without it, I feel like oof. And it's not about what I look like, it's more just my energy. Like, it gives me so much life. And so when I signed up for the ultra, I had no long distance running experience, and I signed up because I was like, I hate running. And I'm like, I am going to conquer this challenge. Like, I needed a challenge, I needed to like sink my teeth into something and be like, this is going to push me and this is going to make me wildly uncomfortable. And that's what I needed. Because I was just kind of in a coast situation, which was fine. It was great. Van life was very much that. I was just going with the flow. We were traveling. I was basically on a 6-month vacation. Truly. Like, my business was growing, and I'm like, this is interesting. I wonder if I like put in some more effort, like what would happen,
Yeah.
But I'm like, all right. So the second that I signed up for that ultra, I was like, everything is going to be different. I just knew it. And I started training, and it was like life force. It was like my whole body turned back on. My whole everything, who I really am in my core, turned back on, which is I love challenges. I love seeking discomfort. I love being outside of my comfort zone. That is where I feel alive. And it's not in the normalcy. It's in the, oh, fuck, I got to figure this out. Oh, we're building this shit. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. That brings me so much joy. Not for everyone, but for me, it does. So training for that, I went into it and I told the person that was running it, I was like, my intention is just to increase my capacity and to have fun. Because everything in the past, it was always about being the best. I want to be the best. I want to push myself super fucking hard. And I was like, naturally training for an ultra marathon is going to push you. You don't have to try. Like, you just do the training, it's going to push you. But I want to enjoy it. And so what I noticed is that in my training, I was super consistent. I did basically every single run that I needed to do or training like block, but I didn't pressure myself to go 100, like intense. That's what I always did in the past, all or nothing. If I'm not going to run the perfect 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, because that's how we started getting up to 4-hour training blocks where you just run for 4 hours, which is crazy. If I'm not going to do the best, I might as well not do it. That gets you nowhere. And I had to actually just be like, Sam, enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. Seek discomfort, but enjoy the process. And so I feel like that transformed my relationship with exercise, because I just signed up for another race that I have in March. It's not an ultra. It's only like 20 miles. But my approach is I'm going to train for it, but I want to have fun. Or else what's the point? You know, like I don't want to go into that disordered, competitive, making myself feel bad energy with exercise. I want to enjoy it. If that means I don't do as well numbers wise, for the first time in my life, I can say I don't care.
Wow.
Like I'm like, what who have I become?
Yeah.
And that I do feel is like such a self-honoring, like that's self-love. Like that's not who I was. I was, if I'm not the best, it's not worth it. All or nothing, super hard on myself.
Yeah.
Really high standards, impossible standards, perfectionism. And I'm like, I'm not there anymore. And that was always that was what got me to this place, but that's not what's going to get us to the next level.
Yeah.
You know?
And what a cool way to look back and be like, oh my God, my relationship with myself has changed so much. And I know that so many women listening to this, including my past self, is like, how much pressure we put on ourselves as women to perform, to look a certain way, to make a certain amount of money, to have all the things. And it's like this internal narrative of like, it always has to be the best. And if it's not the best, then I'm falling short. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. Like all the yada, yada, yada that happens in our brain. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool to know that women can be free of that. And there's many different pathways of how women can get there. And I love hearing your journey with ultra marathons and like how you found that as a pathway to more freedom for yourself and how you're approaching it differently.
Yeah.
And to me that is a lot of the feminine, is like, it's not about what are we doing, it's who are we being, how are we showing up to these different things. And like, you're bringing the energy to something that's really intense, and you're bringing the energy of, okay, how can this be fun, how can I enjoy this? And that's beautiful. That's like the intention that you're bringing into something that could very easily for someone else or for a past version of yourself be like this other opportunity to be really hard on yourself and to be perfect.
Yeah. You know what's wild about the ultra is that at the end of it, there was like little silly awards that they gave out. I won the athlete award and the David Goggins award. And I died laughing because I was like, I didn't approach this with intense, gotta be the best. All I did was tell myself, Sam, you just have to give it your best shot every day. That was it. That was literally it. And I was like, I'm going to enjoy myself. Because for me, though running is uncomfortable, it's fun because you get to explore. And I feel like a little kid. Like, I feel like my inner child's like just running through the woods. And I'm like, ooh, look, a tree. Ooh, like a mountaintop, you know? And that distracts me from the fact that it's exercise.
Yeah.
So it's fun. But I did recognize that some of the people that ran with me had put so much pressure on themselves that they didn't do the workouts. And then they got to the run and they were super underprepared. And I could feel that, oh, there was a lot of mindset stuff that held them back from just showing up daily and just, even if they couldn't do the full thing, at least just do something. And I feel like, oh, I've done so much mindset work around this where I'm like, okay, I know what it's like to go extreme. that doesn't ever get me anywhere, and I always feel like shit. So how can I feel as good as possible and do as good as I can, you know? And I ended up being so happy with my performance. I could have kept running. Like, I was like,
Whoa.
I ran 27 miles. I was like, I could keep going. I never thought that would
That
come out
is
of my mouth.
wild.
I know. Kurt was like, he took the day off work and he came to like support me. It was in the Grand Tetons and we were in Wyoming, and he was like, I'm so proud of you. Like, like he didn't even have words, and Kurt is such a like confident dude. Like I was like, wow, for him to say that, like, yeah, I was like, oh my God. And it was just this inner growth moment of like, it's not about what it looks like, it's not about that, it's about what it feels like. And that's when you know you're like in your truth, you know.
That's such a shift in orientation that can apply to so many different areas, but it's like, yeah, really coming back to, okay, what does this feel like for me? Does it feel expansive? Does it feel good? Or does it feel heavy or contractive versus like, oh, how is this going to look? Right. And that's truth. That's authenticity. I love that. And it's kind of where I wanted to go next too, because I know that a huge way that you've grown your business is through authenticity. It's through visibility. And I want you to share a little bit about like what are some of the things that you feel have like made the biggest difference in your business to allow it to grow and become what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because people always tell me, they're like, you're so authentic. And I'm like, I'm like, what does that even mean? Do you know what I mean? When you're yourself, you're like, thanks. Like, I don't know. This is just who it is. But when I do think back, actually, somebody from, I think it was like elementary school, middle school, messaged me like about a year ago and was like, hey, Sam, I just want to let you know it is so cool watching you because you used to be the quiet girl in the back of the room. And I was like, excuse me? I was? And then I remember I was the chameleon. I followed what everyone else was doing. I didn't listen to my own inner authority. I wanted to dress like everyone else. And it was, I think, one of the biggest things that has made me be who I am is finding expanders, finding other people's expression that I'm like, I like that, or I feel drawn to that. And then trying it on like an outfit, you know, it's like, oh, I want to start wearing this color, or I want to start doing this, or I want to start approaching this, you know, and giving myself permission to actually be who I was, because I had a huge story around I'm too much, or I'm not lovable as I am, or I need to be more X. It could be anything. And I know for me, yet you said you're like the bold, big personality. And I work with a lot of different entrepreneurs that are varying expressions. But I didn't really have that many examples of me, you know? Like there wasn't that many people that were super bold and super like big energy. So I felt like I had to tame it down. I had to dim it. I had to calm it down. You're too dramatic, you're too loud, you're too whatever. But then I started to recognize that most people that are speakers, like that are born to speak on stage and speak and use their voice, are this way. They're personalities, they're entertainers. And I realized I'm like, I'm an entertainer. I am not just X, right? And so I've started to attract a lot of people who are moving into the entertainment space. And honestly, that's the same with the business, is like when you start to accept all these parts of you that you always have been. You know, as a kid, I was the one with the microphone. I had a crown on. I was like making up music videos, like just having a blast, pretending like I was on TV. That's always been my core codes. And I think it was coming back to the inner child, really telling that my inner child, like, Sammy, because that's what I used to be called as a kid. Sammy, it's okay. It's okay to be seen. Like, I love you.
Aww.
I love you. You're safe. And like doing the deep healing work around letting my little me know that it is okay to be. It is okay to be, truly. And the more that that's come out, just the more magnetism I've had, the more opportunities, the more people that are like, oh my God, they find me. And it's like, what? But that wasn't always me. Even when we met, I was not this. And you weren't you.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't the fullness of you now.
Yeah. You've gone through, it's been really cool. I think when we met, you were in this like interesting space of like not feeling clear on, not just like, I think it presented as like, okay, in my business I'm not clear, but I imagine there was a lot that you were sorting through even internally in your identity of like, who am I and how do I want to show up? And then it would show up also in like, what do I want to
Everything.
offer?
Yes.
Right. And like just seeing the clarity that you have, the confidence that you have, like and you were also confident back then. Like there
Sure.
was
But I get it.
It was really, really cool to see you shift out of that space and into where you are today. And
Yeah.
like, it's so
Like Tulum.
inspiring.
Like when we were in Tulum, I was actually just looking at photos because you know how your iPhoto thing does
Yeah.
like memories.
Yeah.
There was a photo of you and I could see it in my face.
Mm,
I was like inflamed and it felt like foggy
mm,
because I didn't have that clear sense of identity. And I think that's really the majority of the work that I have been doing over the past few years has been identity work.
mm-hmm,
It's like, but who am I really?
mm,
But who am I really? Is this really me or is this who I want to be?
mm-hmm.
And that's also been a huge ego death. I feel like it's been like things I thought that I wanted or ways of being that I was like they're so aspirational. I want to be like that,
Mm-hmm.
knowing I would never be like that.
Yeah.
You know, like we shared a mentor who I thought I was going to become this, like, I don't even know, just this like, oh yes, and so today we're going to, that is not who I am.
No.
Like that is not me. And
Yeah.
and I had to find people who are the living expression, which honestly was through YouTube and TV,
Mm-hmm.
like entertainment comedy, places where they're a little wild
Yeah.
and have that be okay and know that I could be successful being myself. I think I had some stories there like I need to be this like love and light, feminine, soft woman
Yeah.
to be desirable, paid, and loved.
Mm.
And then when Kurt and I did our vows, actually, he said to me, one of the things I love about you the most is that you are such a fucking badass. You went into that Mercedes dealership when we were thinking about buying a van and you said, Kurt, we are buying this fucking van. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yep. And then you gave them your credit card. I was like, I did that. You're right. I muscle tested in the bathroom first just to make sure. But I was like, you're right. I am a total risk taker.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just like, we'll figure it out. Like, I'm not going to die. Like, it's going to be fine, you know? And he's a little bit more reserved and like, all right, got to hold it down, which is good. We balance each other. But his reflection of that to me and everyone's reflection to me was like, you're so fun. You're so epic. You're so badass. My self-image was not that.
Mm-hmm.
I had an outdated self-image for so long.
Mm.
And I think a lot of women do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see themselves. They don't. And they don't see all the accomplishments, all the epic things they've navigated, who they are, like just their essence. Like that's enough. They are constantly feeling like they need to be more or do more. And I've really been going through this awakening around seeing myself. And that's been the real transformation is identity, seeing yourself, witnessing yourself, being like, wait,
I'm really freaking awesome.
dude. Yeah. Like, oh, everyone doesn't do this? Because that's been my assumption.
Yeah.
Oh, everyone doesn't just build 7-figure companies? What? And then realizing like, wait, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of the high achiever's curse, right? It's like never enough. But I don't want to be in that endless cycle because it feels so tiring.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. It's interesting. As you're saying this, something that's coming through, and I don't think I've voiced this to many people and definitely not on the podcast, but I think in the past, like I got caught up in this, like, okay, my dream is to build this multiple 7-figure business. I want to impact a lot of people. I want my life to look a certain way. And like the more honest that I've gotten with myself, I'm like, I actually don't think I would be very happy building that type of business in the way that I've seen other people do it. I'm not limiting myself and being like, I can't do that, or I don't want to make a lot of money. I'm like, that doesn't actually feel like me. That feels like a dream that I've been sold or that I've been indoctrinated into.
Totally.
And like, I'm stoked for people who that like genuinely feels true for them. And I see you as one of those people who is like, yeah, that is part of your fullest expression. And I love that for you. And the more I've been honest with myself, is like, I really like simple. Like I like things simple. I want to create an impact. I make good money. Like I want to keep doing that. I do want to keep growing. Like that's a core value of mine is growth and evolution. And I also like want to enjoy my life and my business. And I don't want to keep putting pressure on myself and pressure on my business, which we know doesn't work, like, and then just not enjoy it. So that's like my vision this year, is to really like enjoy my business more.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited about that.
I love that. I think that this, what you just said, is so fucking important, because I've had similar realizations around, oh, actually, I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling myself I wanted that, but I don't actually want that. And it was the same with like being this like, oh, I'm going to do yoga 24/7 and like live in Bali and have this soft, pleasurable life. And it's like, yes, but no. I get so antsy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I need exertion. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like there's this yeah, I think that I wasn't being honest with myself for the past few years,
Mm-hmm.
of telling myself, oh, it's fine. It's fine. I'll just kind of float. But I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, that is not where I feel alive.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's actually not about money. It's more like this, like, I don't really care how the money comes in. I'm like, yes, I want to make a lot of money and I do well. And it's more about me living my fullest expression, and my fullest expression is loud, intense, passionate. And like if I'm not living that way, then that means I'll never achieve or have all the things, right?
Yep.
It's like that's the most important thing, actually, is how we feel, right? If I'm not, like, I went for a run this morning and I was like running along the Colorado River and I'm like, yeah, this is so epic. I just flew in last night and I'm doing this run, and then I'm gonna go see Amy and we're gonna record, and then we're gonna go to lunch, and then I have a call, and then we have dinner. I'm like, yeah, this is like, it's
Yeah.
like that is what lights me up. But some people, that'd be like, no.
Yeah.
And realizing like we all have an energetic blueprint, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and like not making yourself wrong for that, and not want, like, nothing is better. The path that you just shared is not better or worse than the path that I'm embarking on. And I think when we dismantle that and we're like, it's just different.
And when we stop comparing, like,
Yes.
I had to let go of that.
Yeah.
It's like,
And I see that for you.
Yeah.
I feel like it's, when I said the sensual part, I also feel like that's in your business too.
mm-hmm.
It's like having sex, it's like you're not just walking in and being like, penetrate me.
Mm-hmm.
No. There is like foreplay. And it's like, I feel like your life is foreplay. That is like, I feel like it's just
Thank you. I love
perpetual.
this
It's,
description.
yeah.
Welcome
Your
to my
life
life.
is foreplay. But I feel that from you. And it's like, that's a huge turn on for you in your life.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if my life was perpetual foreplay, I would be like, yo, can we actually have a fucking climax here? You know,
Yeah.
like it's funny, but I think that it's again, there's no comparison. It's just what actually is the truth
Feels
for
true
you.
For you. Yeah. Yeah. And that we can also like honor each other's experiences
Yeah.
and journeys and celebrate each other. And
Yeah.
it like, yeah.
Not make each other wrong, not judge each other, and like truly love each other and be like, dude, yes, this is you. This is so you. And you can say the same for me and like have it be wonderful.
Yeah. I love like fangirling you.
Yeah.
You
Me too.
fangirling
Me
and
too. I'm
it's
like, oh my
you're doing
God,
your
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So obviously you and I could talk forever, and we are, because we're
Yes.
going to go out to lunch
Yes.
and then we're just going to keep doing the thing that we do. But for the purposes of today, I want to start kind of wrapping things up. And the last piece I wanted to talk about today was about the power of your voice. And I know that you just started your podcast agency last year, Voice Invisibility, and you're empowering women to speak on podcasts and to like really share their voice. And I know for a lot of women that feels really scary, and it's definitely an edge for them. So tell us more about the power of the voice and like how that can help women to be more in their own power.
Yeah, it's funny because looking back on my journey, if I looked at old journals, old vision boards, photos on my phone, screenshots of like quotes, it was always about asking, using your voice to make asks. And I remember when I read Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and he was like, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no. And it helped me. That was probably at the beginning of my business and like journey into self-growth. I remember thinking to myself, wow, there's been so many instances where things have not been a fuck yes and I've said yes. What the heck is going on here? And so the thing that I believe catapulted everything for me was reclaiming my voice and being like, oh, I don't actually want to do this. Why am I saying I do? FOMO, like comparison, like what's actually going on? And it was the same the other way, which is I said yes, but I really meant no, and vice versa. It was like I wasn't actually truthful to me. And when I started connecting back to like, do I really want to do this, or do I feel like I should do this or have to do this? That's when I started to find so much more power and live much more authentically to me. Like do what I love, build a very unconventional life. Like most people think van life is crazy. Some people want to do it, but a lot of people are like, oh my God, no. And if I let that stop me from doing it, I would have taken somebody else's truth and made myself wrong and then not followed my path. So the voice has been super big. It's been really big in relationships too, advocating, telling Kurt what I need or what I want, or hey, like for example, being here. The only reason why I am here on this podcast with you is because I told Kurt, hey, I'm going to the Bahamas for 4 days. He was hanging out in Nashville. Instead of driving back to Colorado, can you drive to Austin? And then I'll fly into Austin and meet you, and then we can drive to Colorado. I was like, you can take Heffy and have fun, boys trip? Yeah. And he's like, yeah. But if I hadn't asked and I felt bad, I wouldn't be here because it wouldn't have worked. And so the power of the ask and not feeling guilty. I think a lot of women feel very guilty to ask for what they want. I'm very used to asking for what I want. And I have a core belief now is like, I get what I want because you just have to ask. You ask enough times, you'll eventually get it. That goes for business too. It's like in order to be a successful businesswoman, you do have to make asks. Being on this podcast, you asked me to come onto your show. You asked to do this whole studio experience. Like you had to use your voice in some capacity. And if you're afraid to make the ask because you're going to get rejected, which I was super afraid of getting rejected and told no. Like I was so desperately just wanting love. And I think this is a huge thing for women is the inner child. Like their inner child didn't get the love they needed as a kid. So then we go into adulthood seeking it out in any way. We're desperate, truly. And I was very desperate. I was desperate. If anyone showed me any love, I was like, hi, I'm your new best friend. Like I was stage 5 clinger, like needy, I don't think I would have wanted to be friends with me, but that's what it was. I was lonely. My inner child was lonely and she wanted love. So she did anything that she could, which I love her for that. That's what she needed to do at the time. But then I think when you develop more self-worth and higher standards, you recognize that you can have way more than you think. You can have anything. It's just how much are you allowing yourself to have? And so Voice Invisibility went much deeper. Like it was birthed because I started my podcast in 2018. It became a very successful podcast. I grew my business through that. We built a 7-figure business through the podcast. And I was like, wait, this is so cool. I wasn't even trying to make money. It's just people heard me, wanted to hire me. Cool. But more importantly, the podcast healed me. Like podcasting and speaking my truth and sharing healed me. It healed me in being vulnerable because I remember like some solo episodes I shared right after I had a binge and I did an episode and I was like, guys, I just binge ate a whole thing of peanut butter. I feel like shit, but I need to get on this podcast and tell you because somebody out there needs to know that it is okay. I can't tell you how many people messaged me after that. I was terrified. I threw my phone across the room. I was like, oh my God. But so many people messaged me and were like, that changed my life because I was holding so much shame. And shame is what keeps you stuck and in the dark. And they're like, I'm not alone. So I think in a way, podcasting was really healing to me. It was healing to my community. It brought people together. It created visibility and like a platform for me to express myself and feel like I mattered a little bit when for so long my story was I don't matter. And I think a lot of women feel that way. They feel invisible. They feel invaluable. And that was me. I felt invisible and I felt like I didn't matter, which is really fucking sad. Like if I really were to tap into the emotions of that, I would be crying, I'm talking about it from a very grounded place, but truly when your little kid feels invisible and invaluable, that's really depressing. And that was my childhood. I had a lot of moments of feeling like suicidal thoughts. Like that's how unworthy and unvaluable I felt. And for me to be sitting here talking to you, telling you, oh my God, I have a podcast agency giving other people a platform to share their voice and be seen, is like, my inner child is like,
She's like, this is what we came here for. This
yes!
is why I went through all of that shit,
Yes!
so that I could impart this wisdom and support others on their journey of like being seen. And yeah, what you shared is like, so many people are afraid of sharing their voice because they're afraid of being rejected.
Yeah.
They're afraid of being turned down. They're afraid of being judged. And it's like, when we allow those fears to run our life and to impact our decisions of what we do and we don't do, like, it just keeps us small, and it prevents us from being who we came to be. And like you said, creating the life that we really came here to live.
Yeah. And I recognized that you have two options. You either abandon yourself to get approval and validation from others, or you abandon what they are telling you and you honor yourself. It's you're either doing one of two things. You're either abandoning yourself or you're letting go of the opinions of others. And at a certain point, I decided I don't fucking care anymore. Yes, we will always care because we're human, but I care more about like honoring me. And I feel like that's just been my job. If I'm not honoring my little Sammy, then I'm not living a life according to me. And that is like the path. Like, that's the key to everything you've ever fucking wanted, you know? And it's like, go back to the times when you were a little kid. What were you doing? Who were you? What was your personality? If you're not living that now, that's your kind of gold star. That's your compass to being visible and using your voice. A lot of people that are scared to use their voice, it was shut down. Somebody, a parent typically, you know, told them they didn't matter, or they needed to stop crying or stop being loud or whatever. There's some sort of trauma around using your voice or being seen, and you just have to reparent that inner child to be like, it is safe to use your voice. What you have to say matters. Your story matters, right? Because so much of podcasting is storytelling and sharing what you've gone through and knowing that it's enough.
Yeah.
Even if one person, and that was my approach, even if one person gets value out of me sharing my story, I did my job. Why would I keep it in? What we don't speak, we store. And I truly believe you heal trauma and generational shit through speaking. Women specifically too. Like, we were so silenced.
Amen. Yeah.
Like, no more of that. This is the age of Aquarius, and it is so much about speaking up and speaking truth. And like, you can't wait anymore. So yeah, Voice Invisibility was birthed to give women a platform to speak and share and rise. And then, of course, build their brand around that. It's like, build your brand around your voice and amplify your visibility. Like, that's why we have the PR component too, because I'm like, there are so many women that need just the stage. They just need the platform to speak. That is the magnet. Your story is the magnet. What you've gone through is the magnet. That's everything. That is fucking everything. And when we feel worthy enough to share the story, that is when everything explodes. So it's like, give your little version of you all the love in the world. Tell her she's safe. Tell her she's enough. Tell her she's deserving. Grab a fucking mic. You can even talk into your phone, right? And start a fucking show. Do it for you. Don't do it for validation. Do it for yourself. Yeah. I started my show for myself. I did not start it to get validation, money, anything. I started it because I wanted to have conversations with people in my life that I loved. And I thought it'd be fun. Yeah. And I didn't even know it would be so healing, and then generate a business. If you really do it for you, it's the biggest act of self-love.
Oh, such a like permission slip right there. And yes to the reparenting work. And that's a huge part of what I've been continuing to do on my journey. So Sam, so inspiring. Thank you for everything that you brought today. I'm going to listen to this multiple times. I'm sure our listeners are going to listen to it and share it with all the people. And for our listeners who are like, all right, give me more of Sam's magic, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me a few places. Instagram is where I'm hanging out, so it's my name. I'm sure you'll put it somewhere in the show notes, Sam Altieri. And then my podcast is the Sam Altieri Show. That will be changing. We're actually rebranding.
Fun.
Because I'm a married bitch. Let's go. But it will be the Samantha Warren Show eventually. Okay. It's easier to say. It's easier to spell. It just is easier. So But yeah, and then Voice Invisibility has its own Instagram handle if you're interested in starting a podcast or launching a show and putting yourself out there. Yeah, so I can't wait to connect with your humans. They're gonna
Oh my
it's gonna
God.
be
I
great.
can't wait till like the end of this year and look back and just see everything that's blossomed. So
That's such a fun thought.
yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to witness this next layer of expansion in both of our lives.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.